My hand's stable, I feel able to turn the tables, I could do this. Just keep moving, keep your hands up, stupid. I feel lucid, a new viewing. I can see the end, I can see my future, I can view it. It's right there for the taking. Everything I've ever wanted, dreams are just waiting. I just gotta fight for it, willing to die for it, willing to like sort of.
Hey, greetings from the year 3000, it still sucks. This is Philip J. Price, and you're listening to the Drunken Turkey Show, your one-stop for this sort of thing. Hit that button, like and subscribe. You know what to do, just like every other podcast.
What is up, everybody? Welcome back to the Drunk Turkey Show. I'm Daniel. Alongside with me is Big Blue, as always on Wednesday nights. Big Blue, how are you doing, my man?
Doing good, man. Doing good. Just relaxing for a little bit. I do have to work tonight, so I can't have a drink with y'all if y'all drinking. But I'll be here tonight.
Sounds good, my man. I'm glad to see you. Hope you're doing well. Happy Thanksgiving to you and to everybody else in the live chat, all our members. I'm seeing a lot of green out there. I appreciate that. Green means members. If you're interested in being a member, hit that join button. It'll get you in. And we also have some like member only lives, things like that, member only shows. And get that going. You get that going. We got a special guest today. He goes by Sleuth Intuition. He has his own YouTube channel, and he's been covering the Delphi case pretty extensively, for quite a while. And so, welcome to the show, Sleuth. How you doing, my man?
Good. Thank you so much. Nice to meet you, Daniel. Big Blue. What's up?
Nice to meet you.
Doing good, man. Doing good. Getting ready for the festivities tomorrow. It's going to be a big day. Happy Thanksgiving to you. It's our holiday, so to speak, given the fact that we're drunk turkeys. So
it's only fitting.
Yeah. Only fitting. So real quick, how long you been doing podcasting and been on YouTube and stuff like that?
About 2 years.
Oh, really? Nice. Did you start talking about Delphi, or was that how you initially got into the game?
Yep, Delphi was the main case that I covered and what got me into YouTube. I just kind of got tired of people saying, "Hey, I don't want to listen to you," or "That's not how I think." Block. I said, "Hey, I'm getting sick of this. I'm going to create my own platform, and I'm going to make sure everybody within reason, has a voice."
Good deal. And what brought you or attracted you to the Delphi case?
My own family, wondering how this could ever happen, how it's possible. That's what drove me crazy. And then having that video and then hearing the voice and just being a problem solver, you want to get involved.
Yeah, 100%. How surprised were you when Richard Allen got arrested? Was that somebody that I'm sure most people didn't hear from it and heard about him? He surprised me. I didn't dive deep into the Delphi case. In fact, we got into true crime right around the time that Richard Allen was arrested. So he gets arrested. Are you shocked? Is it something that you were expecting, an unknown person? Or were you kind of thinking that there was maybe something else going on?
A little bit of both. I was shocked because I had never seen this person before. Like, we've been looking for this bridge guy for so long. This might be him, right? This Richard Allen character. So yeah, I was shocked just to see him and to see that it was really an unknown person that really hadn't been mentioned, really at all. So yeah, in that sense, I was definitely shocked for sure.
Have you, what do you think about when you hear that he's 5'4" and you see a small stature? These these crime scene photos have been released. Bodies were staged, bodies were dragged and moved, things were happening. How comfortable are you that this was a one-man show?
I'm pretty comfortable that it could have been and most likely was. Anybody who's ever been on a football team, You know, a lot of the toughest players you got out there, these short, stocky dudes, and they could easily lift up a grown man, let alone drag them, especially somebody we've seen bouncing around like a fish on some of his videos. You know what I mean?
Oh yeah, that's true. That is true. Did you hear any of the rumors early on, or did you hear anything about it there being possible Nordic symbols out at the crime scene?
Yeah, I talked to. We've heard a lot about symbols at the crime scene. First, it was K, like a K. Then it was something kind of possibly carved into one of the victims or a tree. Then later on, it was leaked that it was actually an F type symbol. And a lot of that information I discussed with another YouTuber named Frank Meister. So we were talking about this, especially him, talking about this way before it was leaked. There was also some people leaking information about the 40 caliber unspent bullet. Or Richard
Really?
was arrested as well. I believe that's why they went ahead and arrested him.
It's because the information started coming out.
Specifically the bullet.
Really?
Yeah, they couldn't risk him getting rid of that gun.
That makes sense. That makes sense. So you suspect that this was Richard Allen?
Yeah, I do believe he's the person. He deserves a fair trial, of course, but I believe he's responsible for that. In my opinion, I believe it's him.
Yeah, I think that at the very least he's involved. You know, he puts himself at the scene. I think he's the bridge guy. I think he's the guy the juvenile saw in walking into onto the trail. The one thing that I guess bothers me a little bit is the comments that Elvis Fields made. You know, he said some pretty interesting things. You spoke with a guy named Patrick Westfall, who is one of the guys that Richard Allen's defense team pointed at as a possible suspect in this case. You know, there's maybe a loose connection there to Elvis Fields. What are your thoughts on Elvis Fields' comments, just based on that alone? Just that alone, that part.
Honestly, I'm not really sure what to make of it. I think it's possible he made the comments, but we have a lot of strange people who have made a lot of weird comments in relation to this case. We had a guy one time jump into a Facebook group and claim that he was the guy on the bridge, and he went into detail. Also, there was another guy that I interviewed personally who says he could have possibly been involved, but he was most likely mentally unfit to make the determination at that time. But I believe he made the statement, right?
Yeah.
But is it true? I don't know.
Yeah, and that's hard when they're mentally unfit and they admit to things, because there is a couple people that have been locked up for saying that they did something.
And that could be with Richard Allen too, right? With his confessions.
Yeah, I mean,
possibly.
Yeah, that's what I get. Is he acting or is he not acting? Because he wasn't acting the whole time he was out of jail. That he was mentally unfit till he went into jail. But people can, lose their mind while they're in there. It's not the best circumstances.
I agree.
So how did you get in contact with Patrick Westfall?
He actually contacted me.
Oh, really?
He sent me an email. My email is on my YouTube channel. So I had been covering it since the memorandum dropped, and I was talking about him. I mean, I had his face all over the screen, talking about him putting something up in a tree, and he was just kind of watching it, probably going, "No, you guys got it all wrong." And that's what I was kind of hoping for, that either him or Brad or somebody would be interested in contacting me, because I wasn't really taking a side. I was just looking at the information and kind of analyzing it. And I think he just picked up on that and was like, well, I'll reach out to this guy, Yeah. So luck of the draw, I guess.
And when you first talked to him, he's just, I want to clear my name. I want to clear, the information. he mentioned a lie detector test on your interview as well. That hasn't come out. Did he tell you that he passed that test?
Yes, he did.
Okay. Yeah, I'd seen one of my comments because we had discussed your interview on the channel, and one of the comments was that Patrick Westfall didn't admit to passing the test or something like that. So I was wanted to clear that aspect up. What does he say as far as like what he was doing that day that it wasn't him?
I believe his story was he was with his son. Him and his son were together, and they kind of corroborated each other's statements, and I think that was his story. All day he was at home with his son.
Mm-hmm. And he don't live that far, right, from the where this crime occurred.
My understanding, he was living in Delphi at the time. Recently.
Good deal. And well, he when you spoke to him and you talked about John Messer and Elvis Fields, what was the impression from what he was telling you? What kind of impression did you get on him? Do you feel like he was being honest with you? Do you think that he may have been hiding anything, maybe covering or keeping certain things secret?
Yeah, I mean, I expected of him what I expect from anybody. They're going to tell a story that's going to make them look the best out of everything, right? They're going to tell half truths. So I figure he's telling us a lot of truth and maybe holding some things back. I don't know. But he definitely was giving us a lot of information. I still have a lot of questions, and we'll see if I can follow up with them again as well.
He said that the runes that they do are like etching into like circular round, like almost like koshers type of thing, like a little disc,
like coins almost.
Right. But wasn't there also like a memorial that was nearby in the on the trail that had these branches like lined up in a certain way that also maybe perhaps mimicked a rune?
Not that I know of. I know that Brad Holder took some strange photos of some sticks and things like that, but it wasn't anywhere near the crime scene.
Gotcha. Let's see if I can try to find it, because I know there was some sort of like memorial near there. It had like some kind of like stick on top of each other. I mean, it could have been doctored or faked. Thank you, Tara Blue, for your $1.99 super chat. Great guest. Yes, 100%. And thank you for your super chat earlier as well.
Thanks, Tara.
So, what were some of the things that Patrick Westfall told you that maybe you found surprising?
Everything. I mean, it was his. I mean, he stood by everything that he said, in his own beliefs. You know, not a lot of people believe that way, but he had no shame in the things he was saying. He obviously didn't believe it was racist. To us, it was obviously racism. But to him, it was just more like, this is my lifestyle choice, respect it. But to us, it's like, you're obviously being racist, right?
Right.
So that was just something that was a little shocking. But other than that, I wasn't there to judge him or to do anything like that.
Yeah, I was gonna ask. So, do you live in the area you said?
Who, me? No, I live in Phoenix, Arizona.
Phoenix. Oh, okay. Okay. Man, it's nice weather out there right now, I bet.
Oh, it's cold right now. To us, to me.
It's not snowing yet.
It's like 50. It was like 50 degrees. I was like,
I know.
man.
I like 50s. 50s are nice. It's when it gets in the 30s and 40s. Yeah.
See, I don't know if this is even the right one, but this one had some like sticks or stuff like that kind of placed around it. I don't know if this was the one that I had seen earlier, but I had seen something that had some kind of like, I don't know. This kind of looks like a V, I guess.
I've heard somebody mention what you're referring to. I've just never seen it, but I've heard a lot of weird shit lately.
Gotcha. And So you think that Patrick Westfall was completely honest with you? Or you oh, well, I already asked that question. I apologize. Um, what do you think about the staging of the bodies? Doesn't that kind of lead to maybe perhaps thinking that maybe this person had some sort of knowledge of Nordics stuff, rituals, things like that? Um, I don't know. I mean, did you find a connection between Richard Allen and Patrick Westfall, whether it be, a place they hung out at, a bar, work, things like that? Nothing ever crossed paths?
I haven't found a connection, but I'm not saying that there's not one there. I mean, it's very possible. And as far as the crime scene goes, I haven't made up my mind, but right now, from what I see, I can't. I mean, I've talked to people who know about this stuff, and from what they say, hey, I don't see anything. We talked, of course, to Patrick Westfall. He might have a reason to lie, but I've talked to other people as well who are impartial on the matter, and they say I'm just not seeing it. And if it is, it was kind of like amateur hour kind of stuff.
Hmm. So definitely, do you think it was? If it wasn't, well, let's put it this way: do you think it was done to mimic a ritualistic scene, or do you think that he was trying to hide the bodies, was putting sticks and stuff on top of them, maybe got spooked, maybe heard? Because I think it was Libby's dad that was on the trail pretty quickly after they stopped answering, or they weren't answering their phones. Maybe he heard somebody yelling out for him and left. What do you think? And also, do you think that this was a crime of opportunity, or do you think he specifically chose these two young victims?
Well, in the memorandum earlier today, we were kind of reading the footnotes, and according to the defense memorandum, they stated that Holman kind of gave them the time of death. It was between 2:30 and 3. Mm-hmm. So if he was done killing these girls around 3, you have, guess who's slowly approaching the crime scene is her father, Libby's father, Derek, around 3:11, 3:14. So that gives him about 14, 15 minutes of maybe redressing Abby, maybe planning to redress Libby, but then begins to hear people calling. Not to mention, we know that there were a few people out on the bridge around 3:15 to 3:50, around in between that time. And they were also making noise. They crossed the entirety of the bridge. They went all the way to the south end. So he could be there kind of ducked down going, oh shit, what do I do now? And I think really all he was worried about was them coming down to where he was and seeing this crime scene. So all he had to do was take them out of view. He had to stop the weird shit that he was doing, because now it's time to get out. It's time to hide them and get out of there. And people say, well, that's not hiding with sticks. Honestly, it really is. If you cover them with sticks and you're looking for people who are living, you're looking around, you could overlook them easily. And I 100% think that this was premeditated for sure.
And I mean, I think it was premeditated as well, but do you think that the victims were random, or do you think that they were targeted specifically?
I think that they were targeted specifically. I think there's some kind of a relationship that we don't know about, something that's going on behind the scenes that will tie Richard Allen to one of the victims. Maybe even something that the other victim didn't really fully know the story. They just knew that it was troubling and that something was going on, or maybe didn't even know anything about it.
One question that always brings up to my mind is their age was close to the age of his daughter, right? If I'm thinking.
No, correctly. I think his daughter was closer to Kelsey's age, like 16, 17.
I thought she was a bit younger.
But they kind of resembled each other, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, they do look a lot alike.
I wonder if they had a confrontation with one of those schools that's all together, like in small communities. Like there's K to 12 schools that I've been through.
I mean, it's possible, but he also did take those photographs of his daughter on the bridge. So if he is the bridge guy, that's him reliving the crime,
That's true. That is true. So How do you think that he knew that they were going to be there? Do you think there's any connection between him and Keegan Kline and Anthony Schatz? Any catfishing? Do you think that that's how he found out that they were there?
Well, I think what he did was he made the decision to kill them, or to silence them is the way I think he was looking at it. I got to silence them. I've had a lot of free time on my hands. I did something very horrible, which is most likely some kind of relationship or online stalking or whatever it is. And we also read in the same defense memorandum that he's been walking those trails constantly. That wasn't one of just a few times. That's where he goes. So he's probably fantasized about it, picked his location. Like, this is where I want to kill them. How am I going to get them here? Well, what will the tool that I use? Well, I need to lure them. How about I ask my buddy who has that weird account? I'll use that. So it's not Keegan Kline, but somebody that Keegan Kline is connected to, in my opinion.
Yeah, that makes sense. I thought Keegan Kline definitely had something to do with it. It was just a lot of dots connecting into that direction. As things have gone on, I'm not too certain anymore, but he's also had, his charges dropped, things like that, crazy, coincidentally, and then afterwards, Richard Allen's house is searched and then he's arrested. So there's a lot of coincidental stuff that are going on with Keegan Kline and Richard Allen, or with the timing of Richard Allen's arrest and the charges being dropped and things like that with Keegan Kline. Gina asked, did one of the girls ask their boyfriend to go that day? Something going around on the bridge. Did you hear that rumor that the girls were asking other kids to go and hang out on the bridge?
Yeah, I know one for a fact was Max Snowberger, who was a really good friend of Libby and came out on record and stated that.
Good deal. Yeah, that's what I thought too. And if one's getting catfished, by one person, and it's a small community, and if they have an issue there in that area, it's quite highly likely that they could be victims of two different crimes.
We covered that video where he's being investigated, interviewed by a lady, like in like a school area or some kind of building, and he's saying, yeah, they wanted me to go with them because they felt something might happen, but I didn't go with them because I had to help my family on the farm. He had to do something.
I think he was talking to Julie Melvin, I believe.
There it is.
That's right.
There it is. So this is a map of Delphi, and I put down some points and stuff. I think 100% that this was premeditated. One of the reasons being is the direction in which he's traveling. He's traveling on 300 North, and he's traveling from east to west. So he's going from the opposite side of where he works, where he lives, town, going towards the CPS building. Yeah. Why do that? Why go all out of your way? There's a couple of reasons. If he left this house, he would have driven right in front of Abby's house, which tells me then that maybe perhaps that's who the target was. If that's the reason why he's driving this direction, coming, all the way over here, come up, and then just to get in front of 300 North. The other thing is that I thought of is he was aware that they were going to be on the bridge, and he had planned this, and the plan was always going to be to take the life of these girls. And he set up something over here. He would come and park at the cemetery, go down there, set up whatever he was going to set up, and then head on out. He's not going to cross through the river to get on the trail. He's going to get in his car, and the fastest way from here to the trail direction that he went, and he's been stated that he was walking with a purpose when he entered the trail there. So that tells me that he was on his way to meet somebody. And given the time frame in which, Abby and Libby arrive, and he's there, I feel like they were targeted as well. I find it very unreasonable to believe that. And also, the other thing that I find weird is there's no camera saying where he left. He took off on. I don't know if there's any, traffic camera in this direction.
I don't think so.
Well, if there's not, and he's from there and he knows that, then he's not taking the back road to avoid traffic cameras. So that means he was coming from back here for a reason. Two reasons are he was out here or he passed by Abby's house, which still
what if he was at Ron Logan's?
That's another one. He could have been at Ron Logan's address, her house. I mean, he possibly at Ron Logan's address. Is Ron Logan with him? Is the question. And I mean, I know he did some suspicious stuff, but
I
don't know. I mean, the thing about
you never know.
Yeah. I just feel that these guys aren't professionals like that, and there would be some sort of evidence that close to the crime scene. Like, right now they're not going to find much at Richard Allen's house because it's been like 5 years. But at the time when they searched Ronald Logan's house, there's a good possibility of there was DNA or any of those things that they may have found it. So it's possible. It's possible. Happy Thanksgiving. Happy Thanksgiving. Because here's the thing. If his car is parked at the CPS building, like I don't understand why his car is parked at the CPS building, to be honest with you. Like, if
far away from the crime scene.
Yeah, so it doesn't sound like this was ever going to be a kidnapping unless somebody was waiting down here.
I think when he goes hiking there, he's gone down the hill there, and he's walked over there right where they ended up. He's been there.
Yeah. Oh, I think so too.
He probably even stood there and said, this is where I'm going to kill them right here. I'm going to bring them right here.
Why park way the hell?
It's nice
Why
and
not?
far.
Yeah.
We've had a chance. We've had a chance to kind of look at these maps. I don't think Richard Allen looked at a map and was like, okay, I'm going to park here. And then, it's this far from here to there. He's there, he's in real time. He's not looking at it the way we are. So to him, it's a nice long walk. He can commit the crime. Nobody will see it. And he can escape through here, through the cemetery. He's not, I don't think he's really looking at maps like we are right now.
Tim, my question is, why didn't he park at the cemetery? That way they wouldn't see him like walking back muddy.
Well, I mean,
it's too close.
He has to get to the trail.
Have cameras? Like, is there like a chapel at the cemetery that might have surveillance?
I don't think he wants to be seen getting into the vehicle. He wants to kind of sneak in with his little disguise and hopefully sneak out.
Yeah.
Do you think that the muddy, bloody, witness, how accurate do you think that witness is? And do you think they actually saw someone?
I think it's somewhere in the middle. I think it's somebody who had mud and some blood. Yeah, and maybe he had something in his hand even. Maybe his jacket and all his stuff was bundled up in a ball. Who knows? I think the truth is somewhere in between what we've been hearing.
I believe definitely muddy because they did it. And everybody says they crossed the river because it was closed on the other side. So they had to cross the river.
I'm thinking like hat, whatever he had across his face, and maybe the blue jacket he had balled up, maybe even with his pistol, and he was just kind of holding it like, I got to get the hell out of here.
Yeah, makes sense. Do you find it odd that he's not seen on camera and that the description of where he was walking was on the north side of the road where there's nothing there? Like, I would think that you kind of hug it, along the tree line.
I think it makes perfect sense
to walk along the street.
Well, what he's going to do is he's going to distance himself from the crime scene, right? First thing you do, you'd get on the other side of the road. And he also knows that he could probably go behind the Mears property, and it's actually a shorter distance to his vehicle if he cuts through there.
Yeah, you're right. Huh.
Well, it may not be shorter, but it's not any longer.
Yeah, that's true. I mean, if he just kind of like cut from right here.
Mm-hmm. My theory is he would have stayed in the tree lines all the way down till he got to the highway and then just rode that tree line all the way up.
And the only reason I put him way out here is because right around 4 o'clock, when he's said to have been seen right there, we know that Derek German and Tara German were sitting in vehicles parked right at the Mears lot. They were sitting together in a vehicle talking like, what are we going to do? Where the hell are the girls? And at that very moment, Richard Allen is walking somewhere right there. He's not going to want to come right by the Mears lot. He's going to get the hell off of those trails, and he's going to get out of sight, because that was his plan: sneak in and sneak out, in my opinion.
Yeah. Oh, I think so too. What do you think about the kind of sidewinding a little bit, but what do you think about the whole Judge Goal and everything else that's going on legally right now?
I think it's playing out the way that it should. We all want to see due process, and I just believe that that's what we are seeing.
Yeah. What about the fact that he's in a prison and not in a county jail somewhere? Do you think that should play a factor in his treatment, or is that something that should be considered cruel and unusual punishment?
I mean, I don't think so. I think they need to put him in a facility where they can observe him 24 hours a day. And if you're trying to put him in a jail where they're telling you like, hey, we don't know if we can make that promise, why would you want him in that jail and not the prison?
Well, even like I seen when they get put on suicide watch in most prisons, they just get stripped down.
There's a hospital as well, and there's a facility. I believe they probably have a psychiatrist there, people he can talk to, people who can run in there if they had to and kind of diagnose the situation. I don't know if they can do that at a jail, so I believe it's for his protection.
Yeah, there is more staff at the prison.
Yeah, there's medical staff. There's I'm not saying that there's not a medical staff at the county jail either, but there's a better one at the prison. Yeah, more staff. And like you mentioned, well, first and foremost, this is a small area. So I don't know if they have the staff to add on to have somebody watching, maybe not one person, but to have a person watching him 24/7. So yeah, I don't see it as a big issue. I don't see. What about the lawyers? Do you think that they should be put back on the case? Should they be back on as Richard Allen's defense attorneys, or do you think that he needs to stick with or get somebody else?
Honestly, for his sake, I think that they should go, but I don't think it makes a difference. I feel as if they knew that they had an unwinnable case to begin with. What do? You need some type of Pyrrhic victory, right? So they had to, I think they even said it at one point, like, what's the worst that could happen? We can get thrown off the case. Well, yeah, that's the worst that can happen. Oh, well, that's the worst that can happen. Let's go for it. We have no other choice. That's why they didn't spend much time talking about the unspent bullet in the memorandum. It was like 3 paragraphs, because that's the very piece of information they've been trying to get thrown out in the Franks motion, which is the search of his home, because they know that that's the smoking gun, and it's probably clear as day that belonged or was cycled through his weapon.
Yeah.
And Man, I had a question. It just slipped my mind. Holy smokes. Big Blue, what do you got? It's on the tip of my tongue. I'll get it in a second. Oh, snap. He took off from me. What was it? Hold on. I got a super chat right here. Let's see what this says real quick. Angel D comes on with a $2 super chat. What outbuildings are there on Richard Logan property, if any? Are you aware of any like barns or garages or any of those things on Richard Allen's property?
He has a shed, a small shed.
How far away from like
On Richard Allen or Ron Logan?
Yeah. Ron Logan. I apologize. I said Richard Allen, but I meant Ron Logan.
Kind of right where the edge of his property line is. You see where those trees kind of dip up real high in the middle? Yeah. So right on the edge of that, there's barns to the bottom right of that little area.
Okay.
Yeah, in there's a barn somewhere.
Good deal. So I remember what I was going to say. Why do you think that it's bad for Richard Allen to maintain his attorneys? Like, do you think that what they did was so gross that it would affect his court? You know what I mean? It was gross negligence is what they used to get them off of the case. They're fighting for it. I mean, the optics on it does look like they're fighting for somebody that they perceive to be innocent. You know, if they were throwing off the case and they thought he was guilty, you know, don't you think that they would stay off the case? What is the where is the advantage of doing this for them?
It was their only choice. They threw a Hail Mary.
Mm-hmm.
And their team didn't catch it. Got intercepted. Now they're gone. Bye.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? They took their chance. They could have waited and brought all this out during the trial. But if you read the transcripts that were recently released by Gall and in her chambers or whatever between her and the defense team, she kind of gives you a whole list of the things that they were doing. So right from the very beginning, they just weren't, it's like they didn't have any care for Richard Allen. Like all of the things they're saying could be valid, but now we'll never really know.
Yeah. Do you think that if the attorneys or if he gets new attorneys and they don't go down the, you know, the Odinist angle, that trial may be perceived as, I don't know, something crazy, as maybe perhaps like
a kangaroo court type situation?
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, it already kind of looks like that. So hopefully from day one of the trial, things will just kind of go in order and be handled professionally. And then that's what they'll judge everything on is the trial. And we're too busy jumping the gun. You know, it's like we're not even ready for the trial yet and everything's getting all mucked up. So hopefully when it's time for the trial, things go smoothly and hopefully they do address the whole Odinist theory. I mean, you kind of have to at this point, I think. Even the prosecution, even if the defense doesn't, I think that they should.
Yeah. What do you got, Big Blue?
No, sorry, my dog won't stop barking. So, yeah, I wasn't a. That's why I jumped off earlier. I was in I went to Sure. No, in speaking about Ronald Logan, I was going to ask you: was he ever on your radar as one of the persons that could possibly be doing?
Oh yeah, yep. Him and his fanny pack and all his photos. You can see that he has something attached under his jacket. He lives right there. He's always wearing a blue coat. You know, when you're looking at that video and you're doing your online sleuthing or your web sleuthing, you're scratching at everything that's on the surface, right? And Ron Logan's right there on the surface. You got to scratch at it at some point if you're going to get past it, I think.
Yeah. I mean, to me, he's close to the area. He for
a little sketchy.
For a while, he did look a little bit more like the rich guy, but then, you know, when you start seeing his height and I don't know, I think it does seem more like Richard Allen than Ron Logan. But I like the way they said that. Oh, he's elderly, he can't walk there. I don't believe that part. I believe he's lived in that terrain his whole life. He knows how to get around there.
Yeah, but moving two bodies dead weight.
He was at the
That's
dump too that day, right before.
Yeah, my ex-partner was 74, man. He was stronger than ox, man. He would,
Mm-hmm.
move stuff around his house. He never really asked anybody for help.
Yeah, you
Yeah.
can't judge everybody the same, and that goes for Richard Allen too.
Yeah.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, you can't look at somebody and just say based on their looks, appearance, age, or any of those things that they're capable or incapable of committing this certain crime.
Assume, right?
Right. Right. But we got, and I'm pretty sure that if we were around and covering true crime and covering the Delphi case prior to Richard Allen, or from the beginning when Ronald Logan was a high suspect, I mean, the guy was asking for a alibi of the time when the murders had occurred, before the bodies were discovered. So, I mean, that's usually a pretty big red flag.
Oh, yeah.
And, so you think that they have more evidence against Richard Allen than what we know, and that this is going to be a pretty solid case?
I don't know. I try not to concern myself with that. What I'm focused on right now is the bullet. I should kind of rephrase when I say, do I think Richard Allen is guilty? What I mean to say, if they can prove that that bullet was cycled through his gun, I think it's pretty safe to say he's a guilty person. So if they can prove that in a court of law, I think that's very damning. And it's all it's going to take is him being there at the time. Maybe some more detailed information coming from the witnesses, maybe little bits and pieces of information might come forward that we haven't heard. But I think in a court of law, if they can scientifically prove the bullet was cycled through his weapon, I think he's going to prison for the rest of his life.
Yeah, this is the first case that I heard that they actually can't, scientifically can prove that it is a cycle through that gun, just the same way as if it would have been fired, because the impressions are made uniquely, and everybody says, well, they sell hundreds of those guns, but every gun's going to have its distinct marks depending on how you use your gun.
Fingerprint, ballistic fingerprint.
Yeah, because there's some people that might take their gun once to the gun range. It ain't going to be as scuffed up as somebody that goes all the time, so it's going to leave the same marks on your bullets as when every time you use it. It wears and tears, but it leaves the same marks.
Yeah, and I covered a couple cases earlier today where they actually were successful with that evidence in convicting.
Nice. Really, I have not heard about but I have experience in law enforcement and things like that, but I never really looked into like other cases and stuff, just because when I was in law enforcement, it was a lot of focus and worry about my stuff. You know what I mean? Whether not just kind of go into everything else. But so you're thinking that the bullet, if it comes out through his gun, I think that that's a pretty good indicator that he was there. My issue is if he says that he was there earlier, a conservation officer doesn't have that down in writing, doesn't have that down recorded, and he's just going off of his memory. I mean, the only thing that you have him there at that time are the witnesses from the juveniles who saw him, and there's a time-stamped photo of him at a bench. But if Richard Allen can, convince somebody that he was there earlier, if I were him or if I was his defense attorney, what I would say is that, Richard Allen goes to the gun range. He's utilized those blue, that blue type jacket before while at the gun range. And a couple of times when he doesn't utilize all of his rounds, he goes and clears his weapon, cycles around through the chamber, puts it in his pocket. And as he was walking on the trail and he was checking his stock deal there on his phone, it fell out of his pocket. The girls got on the bridge or on the trail after him, found the round, put it in their pocket, and that's how it ended up on their person. I think that that's a reasonable explanation for it. I think they're going to have more. Have you heard of anything else like on the Snapchat video, like that possibly identifies Richard Allen?
No, not that I know of. All I know is it was is the creepy guy still following us? Yes. One thing that I think they're keeping from the public is he hit one of the girls with the weapon first. And then he said, "Get down the hill."
Interesting.
Yeah, I mean, I
Interesting.
believe there is a bit more to that video. It's not 100% released.
Do you think, all right, so let's just say that this was Richard Allen, and he's on the bridge before the victims arrive, and a witness sees him on the bridge, and she turns around and walks away, and she sees who she thinks is Libby and Abby. Where do you think Richard went? Do you think he followed that witness back towards the trail, or do you think he maybe got spooked because somebody saw him and went the other direction towards where they would eventually come out or eventually go down the hill?
Well, he could have possibly targeted her. He could have been looking for random targets. Like, we don't know for sure what happened, right? So he could have been standing there, and he says, "Well, here's a lone woman. Why don't I'll go ahead and I'll attack her. Nobody's around." So as she turns around after seeing him there, maybe he follows behind at a distance. And while he's following behind, he notices two girls coming in the opposite direction. So he stops at the bench, sits down at the bench, lets them pass by, and then gets behind them. And that's the last time they're ever seen. But I think that he most likely went to the bridge, was witnessed, she left, and then he was kind of looking around like, okay, it's pretty clear. There's not a whole lot of people here. Nobody underneath, nobody over there where I plan to be. And then he probably went somewhere like the bench and that began to lure them in that direction.
Yeah, that makes sense. Because if they said that, is he following us again?
It's a creepy guy behind us.
Yeah, like what made him creepy is the one thing that kind of bothered me. Like what did he do that alerted them to take out their phone and start recording them, or recording him? He had to have done something.
I think it's the low beanie. I think it was the hood up over his head, something covering his face, and him just kind of creeping around, trying to hide. Because they might even know him, but they don't know this weird guy who's all covered up in a disguise. He's creepy. Yeah. He's acting creepy.
Yeah. Because I mean, the one thing that I thought of, and it's possible, it's not possible, but if his targets weren't random and they were specific, and if he saw or heard somebody coming and he doesn't want to get spotted, he turns and walks towards, the closed end of the trail. And then the girls get on it. He passes them, turns around, and comes back towards them. One, it's weird that he's coming out of that area, right? And then him turning around and coming back towards them, I think that could alarm them enough to potentially start recording it.
I do think that that's possible. I've looked into that, and I've kind of started leaning away from that, but I almost was considering that, but I think he was more hanging out on the north end. I think he had to kind of observe things. He had to know everything was clear, so he had to be on the north end in order to make sure nobody was coming or anybody was around, no cars pulled up. When you sit at that bench, you can see the Mears lot, and you can also see anybody coming up from the Freedom Bridge. So from that point, you can see everything. So as they pass by him, he's kind of waiting around. He can see them through the trees on the bridge, and he can also see up the Mears lot and then up towards the Freedom Bridge. Nobody's coming. They're getting closer and closer and closer to the south end, and nobody's coming. So now he's decided he's going to do it. Pulls off the covering, lights a cigarette while he's waiting, getting his nerves, and goes for it.
Do you think they found a cigarette?
Mm-hmm.
You think they have his DNA?
I think they have a partial match. That's just a guess, though. They can't exclude him.
Yeah. That makes sense. Unless, well, we haven't heard, I don't know how, I guess, transparent Indiana is compared to Idaho. Idaho pretty much put a lot of the information out there. Has there been a warrant that you have seen for his DNA for a buccal swab?
For Richard Allen, I believe so. Yeah.
Okay, so then if they're testing his DNA, then that means they have probably DNA. Now, if that warrant came after his arrest, then that's probably because if it came out after his arrest, then it wouldn't be obviously in the PCA, so we wouldn't know about it.
Yeah.
If they, how long or how, when did Keegan Klein get interviewed?
He was interviewed multiple times.
The last time before Richard Allen's
When he
arrest,
went to
they
Grissom?
searched. I don't know, the one where that ended up with the Wabash River being searched, and then
That was Grissom. They took him to Grissom Air Force Base.
yeah, when was that?
I want to say around April 19th of 2022.
And he was arrested in November.
No,
right?
August 19th. I think is to be accurate. August 19th.
September, October, November. That's 3 months.
It was around 4 weeks into the search, the Wabash River search.
You know what? I wouldn't be surprised how they found out who he was. If they do indeed in fact have DNA from a cigarette butt or something there, he's never committed a crime, right? Richard Allen or any of those things. He wouldn't be in CODIS. If Keegan Klein was a suspect, because here's what I heard. I don't know how true it is, but I heard that basically, long story short, was that the law enforcement threatened Keegan Klein after that Wabash River didn't come up with anything, that they were going to put him in general population or whatever, and he came clean that he didn't know anything or didn't, had nothing to do with it, that he was just talking to the girls. If they cleared him as a suspect and they no longer had any suspects, then the FBI can get involved and do a genetic genealogy tree. I wonder if that was utilized in this case. Because that's what it sounds like. I mean, I think that's what would happen in the Rex Humerman case. They're not saying it. They don't have to say it. It's considered a tip. In Idaho, they kind of messed up because they did say it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
but you know what I mean? They messed up by bringing that up to light. But I think that they did the same thing in Idaho. And I mean, with Rex Humerman, if you look at the way they, in both of those cases, they talk about a car pointing back to them. And it's kind of very, very, what's the word I'm looking for? Loose as far as like how they came up with this person. And in both of them, it ended up being, or in my opinion, well, Bryan Kohberger, we know it's the IgG stuff. But I wouldn't be surprised if they did something like that in this case, where they ran out of suspects, utilized the FBI. But is it true that the FBI was kicked out on this case by Carroll County?
I don't believe they were ever kicked out, but it was a little strange that they weren't part of the Richard Allen presser. But and they also had a little bit of a back and forth in regards to the tip narrative that they discovered in the Orion system. They said, hey, we did everything, according to the book. It was Indiana that dropped the ball on that.
Interesting. So what do you think is going to happen? I know I'm jumping around, but what do you think is going to happen with Judge Gold? I'm seeing that in the comment section. Do you think she's going to be, is she going to step down? I know she had a medical emergency here recently. You think that she's going to be off as a judge in this case?
I don't know. I'd have to hear more about what's going on with her condition, how serious it is. If it's not too serious, I think we're going to continue on, because with the new attorneys, she's going to have plenty of time to kind of sit back for a moment while they kind of get up to speed, I think.
Yeah. I think it won't be till next year, probably spring, before we hear any new court case, court dates.
Yeah, and hopefully these new attorneys will be good for Richard Allen. I think if he is a guilty person, he needs to have that right representation. Because right now, if he's trying to act like he's all innocent, that's not showing any remorse. So that's going to affect him later on. So I think once he gets settled in, and like if he is guilty, he's going to adapt to that prison life, and he's going to start to see things through a much clearer lens. And he's going to say, okay, what are my real options? I'm done hiding.
Do you find it odd that the new lawyers, or I think one of them is friends with the judge on Facebook and things like that, and I think the other one had some interesting comments about Richard Allen, saying that he felt that the case was strong against him. Do you think that those biases and or relationships affect his possible defense?
Well, I don't know if his attorney said that they had a strong case against him. I know he had a video where he was talking about ejector marks on an unspent bullet in another case, and talking about how compelling and how powerful it could be in a case. But other than that, I mean, she picked Rosie and Baldwin. I mean, what's the difference?
That's true. That is true.
I think in a town that small, there's not going to be a lot of choices.
And I did look at it legally, and there didn't seem to be any issue with it. Like you are able to do that. Because I guess being an officer of the court, you have to basically promise that you're being unbiased, right? You're doing everything by the law. On your word, you're giving your word to that.
Yeah. Right. And that's actually, well, I'm not sure about there, but I know here in Texas, that you get given the option if you want to have a Facebook or not, because sometimes it can be, seen as a bias, or you can put out too much information out there and upset the wrong person. They can find your information online. I have a good friend of mine who became an officer just not that long ago, and he deleted all of his channels when he was in doing his training.
I think you should too. I think that's smart.
Yeah, you don't want to get, people start not liking you when you bust them for certain things, even though it's the wrong thing they're doing.
Good way to get back at you, right? You feel powerless. You just go at them online, try to find a way to get at them that way.
Yeah.
So when do you think that court's going to happen in this case? You think it's going to take all the way until October of next year? You think it's going to end up happening a little bit sooner? I know that there's been some motions here and there. I don't know. What do you think? You think it's going to happen sooner? When do you think this is going to happen?
I think October of next year, I think, is when it's scheduled, right?
Yeah.
I think it'll happen then. Hopefully these new attorneys will have the time that they need to really put something solid together. These other attorneys, they were working with YouTubers and, people who were coming up with all these crazy conspiracies. And it's a little bit strange to get verification that is exactly what happened when you read the latest transcripts of what happened in Gulf's chambers, that they were receiving information from unverified sources. These people weren't professionals. They weren't like private investigators or anything. It was just like you and I, if we were like, oh, here's my theory, let me send all the stuff that I found to the defense team, and then they actually bought it, and went with it. That's kind of what happened.
Interesting. Then so with this Frank's hearing that's coming up with the unspent round and the defense trying to get it thrown out, do they have a leg to stand on? What is their argument as far as why it should be thrown out?
They're basically saying, hey, you guys withheld information. It's obvious that this is in some kind of occult ritual. You held that information out when you wrote this probable cause affidavit, and the judge signed it because they were unaware of this. But they also left out the Ron Logan stuff. They left out the Keegan Klein stuff. They left out all of these fringe theories, right? Because that wasn't what they were planning on going with in the trial. So why even talk about it?
Right. It's not evidence used against their client. But could it be exculpatory if there's something in there? Maybe.
Like the Odin report and all that stuff, it's supposed to be like obvious, that there's experts that say it is ritualistic, and they might have an argument there. But we've all seen the crime scene stuff. We've seen the symbols. We've seen the F. I mean, it's definitely up for debate. It's not like this clear thing where it's clear as day. I mean, we're still arguing about it. And me personally, I don't see ruins and I don't see this. Could there be some kind of message there? Possibly, but I just see an unfinished crime scene. Somebody who was startled doing some weird shit and was interrupted.
Yeah, because what throws me off is the blood sprinkled on them. I mean, it could be like splashes from, if he nicked an artery when he was, cutting the neck of one of them. But to make a certain pattern, it's more like that was intentional.
Yeah, and a lot of people lately are showing this somebody who has a relation to Patrick Westfall, where they took their own blood and they drew it looked like almost like a P in the tree. But you can clearly see like what it is, right? It's not like there's any splatter. There's nothing over here. It's like clearly it's some type of letter. And when it comes to the Delphi crime scene, you can't really tell what that is. Like, yeah, kind of. It's in a shape of an F, but then there's like blood over here and there's blood down at the bottom. To me, it looks more like Libby was cut in the neck. She grabbed it, leaned against the tree, smeared it, and then fell backwards.
Yeah, have you seen the
both
crime
her hands
scene?
were covered? I haven't seen the photos. No.
Yeah, neither have I, or us,
I
unless Blue's hiding him.
I have not seen him.
Yeah. We've talked to Rick Snee, who says that he's seen him, and he's drawn out some pictures of what the crime scene looked like, and the sticks and the position of the bodies. It is weird. It is interesting. Now we do have a person who watches the channel, watches the show, and they have sent me some things because they have ties to Norwegian and the Nordic symbols and things of that nature. And some of the things that this person was telling me was that, you can combine different type of runes and the body and stuff like that. And that there definitely does look like, maybe not definitely does, let me rephrase it. There is some similarities there, and some of it may look even backwards, which apparently, oh man, did he disappear? You're muted, Blue.
I say, yeah, it looks like he.
Oh, there he comes
is.
back.
He's coming. Just
Went haywire. I missed
Okay.
a minute of what you said. Sorry about that.
All right, no big deal. Big Blue, what was I saying?
Shoot, I don't know. I was reading the comments.
Blue, you gotta pay attention. That's why we have a shirt saying "Blue, pay attention."
I am. I'm also paying attention at the time. I got to get going, but y'all have a good night. Thank you, Sleuth Intuition.
It was nice to meet you, Big Blue. Thank you
Nice
so
to
much.
meet you. And maybe next time we'll jump on and we'll have some beers in my mouth.
Heck yeah, let's do it.
That'll be awesome. Yeah, and I think that Richard Allen definitely had something to. Well, I think he had something to do with it. I wouldn't say definitely. I want to see the evidence. I want to see everything that they have against this guy. Do you think anything about any of that? Any truth to the pressure of an election that's coming up pretty soon, or that was coming up pretty soon? That had a lot to do with why they solved this case in the time that they did.
I don't think so. But I think corruption and things like that does exist. I think not just in law enforcement. I think it's just human nature to try to control things in your favor, right? You're going to try to do what you can to affect the outcome in a positive way. But I don't think that that's what happened. Like I said, I truly believe right before Richard Allen was arrested, YouTubers were talking about this unspent bullet. I'm talking like weeks and days right before. And sure enough, he gets arrested, and that's the most powerful evidence is the bullet. So in my honest opinion, I think that's what made them arrest Richard Allen, and they've been watching him for some time.
Really?
Man.
Yeah, it's possible. It's possible. I think that. Yeah, I don't know. I think that if there's DNA there, and they got his DNA on the scene, then I think he's toast. I think that you can't explain that. I wonder when it was that warrant, or if that warrant came out, and they tested his DNA. That'll tell us some stuff. If there's DNA there, did they test Ronald Logan? Did he give a DNA sample?
I believe he did, but his DNA was already on file. But everybody that they were seriously looking at gave blood and a hair follicle test.
Oh, wow. Interesting. Yeah, see, there's a lot of stuff that I don't know about this case. Like I said, we got into it right around the time that Richard Allen got arrested. We saw the probable cause affidavit. And initially, I was like, all right, well, this guy puts himself there. He's wearing the clothes that the person in the video was seen wearing. He says that he sees these 3 juveniles as he's walking into the trail. They're walking out. There's 3 witnesses that corroborate that, and they have a photo that they took on a bench that indicates that they were there at 126. Mm-hmm. So, all those things kind of lead me to believe that he was there. Like I said earlier, I think Elvis Field's comments are a little suspicious. I mean, especially like, the antler stuff, or the
what
horns.
happens is, I think it's kind of the chicken before the egg situation. Like, if let's say you're sitting there, you're the defense team, and you're trying to come up with this scenario, this theory, and here you have a statement that's lost in all these documents about Elvis Fields and antlers. So it's not like you looked at the crime scene photos and you saw antlers. Right? They're not antlers yet. You see this document about Elvis Fields, and then you go and you make the crime scene photo into antlers. That's what happened, in my opinion.
Gotcha. What are your thoughts on Brad Holder's son? Do you think that because Brad said that his kid never met Abby? Right, he was supposedly dating Abby. He claims that his kid never met Abby, but I think there's photos out there of them together.
I think Patrick Westfall said that they never met. I don't think Brad Holder ever said that. And I don't think the parents would even know, right? You know what I mean? 13, 14-year-old kids, what are the parents going to know? Everything's a secret.
Right. It's possible. So you don't think that any of those type of claims that maybe perhaps he was aware that they were going to be there because of his son?
Yeah, I mean, that's all interesting. It was interesting in 2017 when a lot of people were looking at that angle. So hopefully they did vet him. And the information that we got way back then about Brad Holder, because he was everybody's POI, right? They see him, they see his strange Facebook, the comments that he made about Valentine's Day. And then they do a little bit of digging, and there's Logan Holder. He's dating Abby. So now you feel like you've made that connection. I was there. I did the same thing. But the truth is, the dude most likely has an alibi. I mean, you can accuse him online and throw his name in a memorandum, but you don't have to prove anything. You just got to throw some shade his way, throw him under the bus and stand back. And there's no repercussions for that because you're not in a courtroom. You're not really sending out a subpoena for him. You're just kind of saying, hey, look over there. I want all the web sleuths to look over here and not digging up all the social media that my client Richard Allen has been hiding for the last 5 years.
Yeah. No, that makes sense. Yeah. So you're pretty confident they got their guy and he's the only guy.
I don't know if it's the only guy. I think there could be multiple, but to me, it's all about the bullet. If they can prove that, I'm sold.
Gotcha. I think that the bullet definitely does kind of, put him there. I think that if they do have DNA of him, whether it's on a cigarette butt or something like that, then I think that is definitely that's gonna be what takes him down more than anything else. You see him pleading out on this by any chance?
I do. I see him because his last appearance, it's obvious that he's been eating regularly, getting some exercise. He had um, more of a suntan. He's obviously getting some kind of sunlight. He had a lot of weight back. So I think now that he's adjusting, and what he needs is a defense team that's not going to enable his lies. They need somebody who's going to take his best if he is guilty, right? If not, of course, they should fight for him to the bitter end, of course. But if he is guilty and they believe that, they need to represent him as such, right? They need to protect his future moving forward and how he can now become can kind of turn things around and start doing good things for the case if he is guilty. And I think eventually he'll see that light and say, hey, here's what happened. Here, this was the motive. And he's not going to tell everything, but I think he's going to tell most of the story.
Yeah. Yeah, well, he's already confessed to his mom and his wife. I don't know if that was coerced or not, but he did confess. And if it ends up being the situation where it wasn't coerced and it slipped or whatnot, or he's trying to give it off his chest, then yeah, you there's a good possibility that he will end up coming forward and talking about all those things. I think Indiana's a DP state, so maybe perhaps to avoid that, he'll talk about why, how, where, how he got involved with them. How he knew they were going to be there, if he knew they were going to be there. He
can have a future in prison. If he did this, he can still have a future. He'll be able to correspond with his family. He can talk to reporters throughout the next following years. He can have some kind of a life. But if he goes unremorseful into a death penalty scenario, it could be really bad for him.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Well, I mean, yeah. Well, if he goes to prison and people find out, or once his face is everywhere. But once he's seen by somebody else and they know he's a child, he took the life of kids. He's not going to have much of a future, or a long future after that, probably. Like I said, what about the one last thing? What about the tentacles? There was tentacles that Carter was saying, and we had 2 sketches. Where do those things fall onto Richard Allen? Do you think any of those 2 sketches look like him?
I think they both do. I've looked at a lot of images of Richard Allen, and I've seen him in the very same day under 2 separate kind of lighting, and one he looks young and one he looks old. And this is December of 2016.
Gotcha. Makes sense. Yeah. Do you think that's going to be an issue though when it comes down to trial? Like, I'm sure the defense is going to use that as saying like, hey, you have one that's old, one that's young. They couldn't even decide. And I think I've heard also that there was like maybe 2 other sketches that weren't used or weren't put out there.
Those might be fake. Those might be fake.
Those might be fake.
Yeah,
because one of them looks like Elvis Fields, and I was like, and even has a beanie and stuff like that. So I don't know, and it didn't look like it was really drawn by a professional. But
the Trooper Bryant is what's signed on the bottom, and I'm actually trying to get in contact with him to verify it. But the way that he does it, he's not really making a sketch. He's going through a booklet that's filled with like 10 different eyes, 10 different noses, you got 3 pages of foreheads, and the person's going through and saying, well, that kind of matches. Okay. So he's going to use that, puts that into his system. Okay. What kind of eyes? So they're going through a folder looking at what eyes they think the person had. He's not going, oh, do they look like this? And then throwing away the whole sketch, That's not what they're doing.
Gotcha. What about that 65 Ford or Comet or whatever it was that they're saying that one of the witnesses is claiming that they saw parked backwards?
Yeah, that stuff's interesting. You got the PT Cruiser, you got the smart car, you got all that stuff. I think is just going to have to play out in court. And when you have the witnesses, you have investigators who put out the probable cause. They're telling their half truth. You have the memorandum being put out by the defense, and they're telling their half of their side of things. But when you have the jury watching and you have these witnesses on the stand and they're being asked detailed questions, it's not going to be as simple as like, oh, I saw this. No, actually it was this. And then you have all the speculation on the side, from the crowd in the courtroom saying, no, it was this. No, you're going to have the witness explaining exactly what they saw. And if they are confused, you're going to have the defense and the prosecution are going to have an opportunity to cross-examine them and make sure it's clear. So it's not going to be like these paragraphs that are sent out to the public and we're just here speculating about it,
Yeah, no, yeah, 100%. I understand that. One last question before we call this a show is, do you expect any surprises to come out during trial?
Yeah, I think we're going to hear maybe some surprises about the DNA, maybe a little bit more truth about how they found the tip narrative. And I'm hoping that maybe somebody else has come forward with information is what I'm hoping.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so. I think that I hope there's more. I really do, because just based on the PCA, and the PCA isn't designed to be, proof beyond reasonable doubt. This is just designed to arrest somebody, and to charge them, and bring charges up against someone. So I understand that aspect of it. I do also understand that at the time of the arrest, the PCA is probably about 85-90% of what they have at that time. Now, a lot of things will come out after the fact. And I'm interested in seeing what those things are and seeing what the evidence is against him. Because this is a senseless crime. It was a horrific crime, based on the crime scene, descriptions of the crime scene. It is it's just horrible. I mean, there's no words can describe it. And, the person who did commit this crime needs to be put away so they don't do it again. Do you think he's done it before? Do you think there's any connection there between some of the other? I think there was like another older couple that had a break-in, and there were supposedly some Nordic symbols there.
I haven't heard a whole lot about that, but there is a case nearby out of Wabash. Jordan Sofer, she was found in between Peru and Wabash, not very far from where Richard Allen lived. But the thing about Richard Allen, if he is who I think he is, we could be dealing with a very sophisticated criminal. And if he did do this before, he may not have left DNA, or he may not have left any traces. And for all we know, he brought them down to that creek for a reason of hiding his DNA, using the water and things like that. The fact that he came forward, if he's a guilty person and he knows that those girls saw him, for him to come forward shows a very high level of sophistication on his part, being proactive like that, saying, if I don't come forward, they're going to know I was here. They're going to get a search warrant. They're going to find all my shit. But if I come forward, they don't have anything because I admitted to it. So.
Yeah, that makes sense. I thought that, the girls being on the bridge is why, or seeing him entering the trail was also the reason as to why he went out there and said that he was on the bridge. You think his wife had any knowledge that he was this guy?
I think it's possible. I also think that she had many reasons for plausible deniability. A lot of confusion from law enforcement. And I think that there was a reason for that. I think that they knew that if she did know, she wasn't coming forward, and that they needed somebody to come forward. If somebody would have come forward, I think they would have been able to search him a lot sooner, but they didn't get any support or anybody that came forward saying that guy in that blue jacket, that's Richard Allen, 100%. I don't think they had anybody do that.
Interesting. Yeah. Now that's one of the questions that always comes up is like, did the family know? Were they onto it? Was there signs? I think she had came forward and told police that he had a blue Carhartt jacket, and he had certain things. She seemed to be very open and honest about things. I just wonder if she knew that he was on the trail that day and what he was wearing, that day. And then after they talked to, the conservation officer, I'm assuming it's after that is when the video comes out, because I think they talked to him either that day or the next day. Isn't that correct?
It may have been the following day, midday, at a grocery store.
Yeah, so it was before the Snapchat video had been put out there.
Very smart on his part if he's a guilty person. Very smart to do that. It's not going to get him, eventually it's going to get him caught, but I believe that's what bought him 5.5 years of freedom, was that move.
Yeah. I think, you have a lot of tips coming in. You have a lot of people that are helping. Him going to the conservation officer and not going to like a police officer or stuff like that, I think is also another tactic to avoid the investigation. Because if he goes and he talks to a detective or somebody in the know of what the scene was like, and or what some of
like
the
a
witnesses
profile,
may have
maybe
seen.
even like they're looking for a certain type of person, because at that point they had no clue.
Right, exactly. And I'm just thinking that if somebody comes up and says, if I'm a detective, and or I'm at least a police officer amongst the department that's working the case, I might know a couple of details based on just talking, rumblings back and forth. And if I'm aware that the person, there's a video and of the person, and that he's wearing a blue jacket, hat, blue jeans, and I have somebody tell me that, that's going to spark my attention. Now, the conservation officer who doesn't work in the department or the county that is investigating this crime maybe doesn't have privilege to all those little details. And given how many tips and leads that were given, it does seem reasonable to believe that it would get lost in the shuffle, so to speak.
And Richard Allen could have been kind of playing that part, had his wife with him, his daughter. Oh, we're going out to have dinner. I just wanted to talk with you guys about what I seen. He could have been wearing his Bill Cosby sweater, not some jacket, not some face covering, looking all pitiful, like, oh, I'm just this little old family man, kind of doing that Jedi mind trick thing,
Yeah. Appearance can sway somebody, if somebody comes in, with the right appearance, and I'm not talking about like just looks. I'm talking about like they present themselves right.
An energy, even,
Yeah, exactly. And, some people can hide it,
Yep.
Somebody that commits a crime like this and can live with themselves is probably not all there, whether it's a lack of feelings or lack of emotions or whatever the case may be. And, you can, if you're dealing with that kind of person, they're not going to come in, kind of worried or scared. They might be in control of their emotions due to that, because of a lack of it.
Well, they could spend their whole life like a chameleon, you know what I mean? Just hiding it. And then when they're alone, they go right into their mind and into their fantasies, and they're living this alternate life. And then when, it's time to go out and see the public, go to school, go to work, go see your family members, they snap out of it and they get into character. But every time they're alone, that's why you'll see some people walking, they're just kind of talking to themselves.
Mm-hmm.
They just don't realize other people are watching them, because they're so used to living in their own head and then being somebody completely different, when they're socializing.
Yeah. Oh, that's true. That's true. Well, this is Sleuth's YouTube channel. It's called Sleuth Intuition. Make sure you guys go out there and follow him. It is in the description as well. Just hit that link, follow, subscribe, the whole 9 yards. Do you have any questions for me before we call it a show?
No, I really appreciate it. I want to give a shout out to Big Blue, your other guy, Jamie, as well. And you, Daniel, for inviting me on. I really appreciate it.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. I tried to do it earlier, but I got like dyslexia, well, I do have dyslexia. So I think I kept putting your email in the wrong way, because I kept getting back saying wrong email. And then somebody posted it I was watching one of your lives, and somebody had posted the link there in the live chat. So I was able to click on it. And I was like, hey, it worked now.
It was bound to happen. I want to give a shout out to the Drunk Turkey Show crew. Thank you guys for being so nice and showing us a warm welcome. Thank you.
Awesome. We appreciate you, my man. Have a happy and safe Thanksgiving.
Happy Thanksgiving, everybody.
We should do this again sometime, man. I appreciate you.
I hope that we
do.
do. Thank you. Take care, Daniel.
You too. Everybody, we'll see you guys next time. Peace.
Take care. Bye.